kids need AP classes, and we need to implement early childhood education. So, I mean, it's a little bit of a false choice, but that would be the approach that I would suggest for any budget type process.
I'll kind of echo Tom's sentiments and say I'm one of those people who embraces the none of the above choice because I have some expertise in budgets in my business. I run a cemetery over in South St. Louis, and I deal with budget concerns every day of the week and all year long. And I found over my 6 years in running that business, there's always something that you can cut that is less crucial than the education of our children. And as Tom just said, if you look through the Parkway budget, and I have, there are plenty of places where we can at least examine sources of budget cuts. I would consider cutting children's education absolutely last after all other possibilities have been exhausted.
I tend to agree with both of you. On the other hand, there are times where we have to make difficult choices, and sometimes you have to choose one or the other. I have a 4-year-old daughter who is enrolled in the Early Childhood Center programs. I am enrolled in the Parents as Teachers programs, and I see the benefits that come out of these programs. I also understand from a research standpoint, being in the research field, that how important it is to funnel resources to the early childhood area. It is very difficult to try to make up for lost time, and I think that's very important to do that. The AP classes are very important. We need to support those children as well. We can't lose them, and I would hope that we could find ways to be able to support both of them together.
I do agree. Those are both very two important programs, and I don't necessarily think that decisions should be taken too lightly. But when asked the question, I do believe that we do need a strong ECE program because that is the crucial development stage for our children, and that is when they tend to absorb the most knowledge. So when we have to make a cut like that, we need to realize that, you know, when we're getting our information to our kids early on, that builds them to be strong learners and to continue that level of academic integrity throughout elementary, middle, and secondary schools. So I would have to support that we would continue to keep a strong early childhood program so that we can continue to build strong values and character and leadership values with our children as early and as soon as possible. Thank you.
Well, Parkway needs to meet the needs of all students. That's a very difficult choice. I'll acknowledge that. Early childhood education is a great investment. The state of Missouri is starting to have that discussion in its formative stages to support it at a state level. It's important that we continue to have strong programs locally until that happens. AP also meets the needs of a significant number of high school students to prepare them for the mission that we've said we need to address. I think there are lots of other areas that I would cut before those two instructional areas. I would look first to program costs. If we look through items in the budget under the category of program costs, I think those are less directly, they're supportive of instruction, but less directly related to instruction. I would look first to those categories for program cuts.
College and career readiness is what we're looking at as 21st century learners and preparing them. So both ends of the spectrum are equally important. You have students right now currently in AP programs, and we have more students that are entering the elementary and early education programs. Therefore, there's more research. However, if you start those children early and you explain to them how their education is going to help them, and then you are not able to provide the fullest aspiration of their educational goals with AP, then you don't have equal sides of the spectrum of education that's needed for college and career readiness.
Thank you. Dr. Sortillo?
Early childhood programs are the foundation of a child's experience. Basically, children are really ready for school when they're 2 or 3, 4 years old. And the early childhood programs provide that opportunity for them to develop the skills to develop the knowledge, the readiness to basically have a solid foundation so that they could continue to learn as they progress through the various grade levels. AP courses are absolutely essential. We have a wide range of students who are very capable, very outstanding students who should have that opportunity as well. So essentially, I echo what everyone has said. These programs need to be in Parkway. Parkway would be absolutely remiss not to have them. And with all the budgeting cuts and the stability that the Parkway has now in terms of our budget, there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to support them all.
Well, I must say, if we come to the point that we need to choose between early childhood or AP, then we have seriously mismanaged our funds. I would think that there have to be many other areas in our budget that would have minimal impact on student and student achievement. The budget needs to be prioritized, and any cuts should be made with a scalpel, not a hatchet. We would start with overhead and capital projects that we could cut. We could find areas to cut that would have have minimal effect on the educational opportunities we present our children, both young and senior. Thank you.
I've been given a card with a fact on it, and I'm not a Parkway parent, so I don't know if this fact is correct. So I guess I would like verification it's correct before we discuss it. And this is that $8 million had to be used for reserves this year. Is that correct? Yes, no. I don't. $8 million had to be used from reserves this year. Is that correct? Okay, well then whoever wrote that question, that's why I'm going to put it aside, okay? So it dealt with that number, and I didn't know if it was correct or not. Okay, next question. Moving along. Mr. Brodsky, how do you feel about teacher tenure reform as well as merit pay for faculty?
Well, I don't have enough expertise in the matter to address it, but I will at least state that I think teachers are our second most valuable resource in our school district, and teachers deserve to achieve tenure if it's available to them. What was the second part of the question?
Just that. Merit pay, teacher reform, and merit pay.
Right. I think merit pay would come under the same statement.
Okay.
This is a very important issue because I truly believe that the ability for a school district to be able to hire and retain quality teachers is extraordinarily important. If you look at other countries around, if you look at other countries throughout the world or even other places around the United States, some of the finest educational institutions are ones that can afford to pay their teachers very well. And we need to be able to do that here in Parkway. I don't have the experience either to say which way is better, whether it should be based on standards or performance, et cetera, and we could talk all night about that issue. But I would be very much in favor of trying to make Parkway be the best school district that it can to provide the highest pay possible to retain and hire quality teachers.
I would also have to agree with Debbie. In order for us to retain high-value teachers or quality teachers, in order to ensure quality of education, there has to be appropriate incentives provided to those teachers in order for them to want to come and work in our district and help us maintain our blue ribbon status. I'm also not informed enough, unfortunately, to make a comment one way or another regarding merit pay, but I would like to say that I would like to continue to see the high caliber teachers that we do have to continue to work in our district and to want to inspire other high caliber educators to also come work in our district. So with that said, I think that it is something that is worth exploring, but we must be fiscally responsible as to how we handle our funds regarding that issue. Thank you.
Well, 20 states are currently basing from 20 to 50% of teacher evaluations on student achievement. And many states are basing compensation on student achievement. The challenge is, how do you measure the effect of an individual teacher on student achievement? from year to year. Teachers have varying assignments. They teach in different schools that have different demographics, students that are better or poorly prepared. In states that have implemented, they've had teachers that one year rank at the very top of their scale and the next year rank at the very bottom of their scale. The teacher hasn't changed. The class has changed. Student achievement is a difficult thing to measure and relate to teacher performance, though we know that teachers are effective impact student achievement. It's a difficult thing to assign a quantitative measure to, so I'm very skeptical about using it as a basis for teacher salaries. I think student achievement is a good basis as a formative assessment to help tailor instruction and help inform the teacher about their effectiveness.
Could you repeat the question one more time, please?
Sure. We'll just find it here. How do you feel about teacher tenure reform as well as merit pay for faculty?
I feel about teacher tenure reform and merit pay that we must be very, very careful. We need to know that Parkway is looked at as a leader, not only in our state, but across the country. And anything that we do may not be able to be duplicated in other school districts. And so the precedent that we set is one that has to be carefully thought through. I am all for teachers being paid what they're worth. Our teachers are outstanding. They deserve to be recognized with pay for the work that they do.
Thank you, Doctor.
Basically, we want to be sure that we have the very most outstanding teachers in our classrooms. Teachers who care about their children, their students, teachers who are well prepared in teaching the strategies and approaches that best meet the needs of all students as well, and also are very current and relevant in their curriculum as well. But I do have a concern over the years that I've been in education with tenure from the standpoint that sometimes we have teachers who maybe aren't meeting the standard that we expect. And tenure creates a situation where it's very, very difficult to help those teachers find another employment. And that's one of the limitations. We have outstanding teachers in Parkway, truly outstanding, that really meet the needs of all students. But if we have a teacher who is not really up to the standard and the expectation, sometimes tenure does prevent us from having the opportunity to help that teacher to think of another area of their career.
Thank you.
Well, certainly, I think we need to create and foster an environment where we can attract and retain the most talented and effective teachers for our children. In my experience, merit pay is an effective way to encourage excellent performance. So I would certainly consider it as an option for our teachers as part of our comprehensive compensation package.
Thank you.
I like Ken's answer. Actually, it's because he really struck on something that I think is important when you consider a teacher's ability to perform in the classroom, and that is that student performance is the primary goal, but it also becomes a very difficult metric when you're looking at somebody's work performance. We talk a lot about teacher evaluation, and I look at it as a professional development tool more so than a way to analyze or penalize teacher, to weed out, quote unquote, teachers. Like, if a teacher's underperforming, then it's part of the responsibility of the school district to get them up to the speed where they need to be. And then also, I'd like to reiterate that Parkway definitely needs to attract and retain the most qualified teachers that they can.
Thank you. Ms. Hopper, one more financial question, then we'll take a break for something else for a while, okay? What would you do to make more efficient use of financial resources available to Parkway? So more efficient use of what you have. And then another question that's turned up a couple places is, where would you make cuts? And they would like specific answers to these questions. Okay, more efficient use of financial resources, and where would you make cuts? Ms. Hopper?
Certainly it is the district's responsibility to make sure that the resources are used efficiently, and I think any waste of taxpayer spending would not be in the best interest of the school district. It would be better to be a board member to be able to specify where the cut should actually be without having the benefit of all of that information and knowledge. It's difficult to sit here and say where the cut should actually take place. I would like to, if any cuts were made, I would like to see them be kept as far away from the children as possible. There generally, in my experience with operations and budget management, there are ways to make cuts. They may not be easy, we may feel some pain, but there's always a way to find a more efficient use. And I'm very proud of Parkway for the last 2 years of what they have done to make evaluations.
Thank you very much. Mr. Williams.
Well, you know, for the efficient use of funding, we need to make sure that we ensure that our district and its top administrators allocate our resources appropriately. And I would agree with Deborah that the last thing we want to do is allow the kids to feel it in the classrooms. We want to make sure that all resources are given to them and give them a competitive chance to be the best they can be academically. In areas of cutting funding, specific ways to cut, you know, one avenue of exploration might be to cut supplemental reading instructors. So that because they generally have master's degree or in higher level graduate degrees, and therefore are higher on the pay scale. So our teachers are currently certified to be able to teach our children within our classrooms in reading and reading comprehension. So we would try to utilize on already existing resources so that we can allocate current resources appropriately without getting into too many other areas that we would cut the budget to that would affect our children.
Mr. Eigenberg.
Well, on the first question, how to make more efficient use of financial resources, I have 3 priorities about that. First is that every dollar that we spend must be aligned to support the district mission and the Project Parkway objectives. Second, we ought to involve stakeholders in that discussion to find out what the community values. If we have to make difficult choices, let's find out what the community puts priority for. And third, there are some things that we just have to meet the obligations for. Those are statutory and contractual obligations. There are also things like safety that we just can't compromise. We have to be specific about cuts and going through the budget. The budgets tend to be opaque and in broad categories, but if you look at specific expenditures made by the board, some schools have been spending as much as $30,000 on a program to be trained in Stephen Covey principles. I think they're great principles, but perhaps that could more effectively be done with a book study using Parkway's implementation recently of professional learning communities.
When it comes to the efficient use of resources, I think that Parkway is very rich in the resource of alumni and the resource of business partners and the potential of business partners, either through in-kind donations or philanthropic donations to the school district. It is an area that can be expanded. It's an area that can grow, and it can benefit our children so that the students are ready for Common Core as it's coming down in the next year. Another way is to expand community partnerships and continue with that so the shared costs can be a benefit to all those who participate.
Thank you.
Basically, our budgets are personnel related. About 90% of our budget is personnel related. The most important part of protecting that budget is our teachers in the classroom, which we should never reduce in any respect, and we should maintain the class sizes that we do have and give teachers the resources that they need to provide for their students in every way possible. The operating budgets are a very small piece of the budget, and basically these are areas that we can cut from time to time, and we need to be more efficient in terms of how we utilize those funds. Budget managers need to be more accountable. They need to monitor their budgets accordingly as well. Primarily, the most important thing is that we maintain classes that provide for the teachers that we do have in the classrooms, and make sure that our operating budgets are as efficient as they possibly can be. And that's one of our goals. How do we allocate resources to ensure that we utilize them in the most proper way, the most efficient way?
First, I think we should try to always avoid budget cuts. We do this by diligently managing our budget and our expenditures to stay in line with our student enrollment. Of course, if we were to have to make cuts, the first step in any budget cutting process is going to be prioritizing your budget. We would examine each area for opportunities first to make an efficient use of our resources or a more efficient use of resources. No matter how efficiently you're using your resources, there's always opportunity for improvement, and first we would need to find those items. Beyond that, should we have to make cuts, we would want to make sure that these cuts are cutting from areas deemed to have the least impact on student opportunity for achievement and success.
I want to echo a few things that were said here leading up, but a couple of things. First, we are experiencing some efficiencies. I mentioned in my opening statements the CNG buses. That's going to save the district $250,000 a year. The solar PV is going to save the district over $1 million over the life of the agreement. But also, I believe it was mentioned earlier, working with community partnerships and business partnerships for extended learning opportunities and that sort of thing is really important. But Sam hit on something that was really important too, and that is that the vast bulk of our budget is staffing. So in order to keep the cuts from affecting students' performance, you do need to get stakeholder involvement. You need to ask the teachers, the custodians, anybody you can to find out the more efficient way to utilize staffing models.
Thank you. Because most of the time I'm going to speak to this subject is devoted to resources, I'll just simply state that with regards to cuts, I would suggest we look within the Parkway School District and see where there's any duplication between schools, and if facilities can be shared for functions that have similar purposes, that would be one area to look at. But on the subject of resources, I mentioned in my opening remarks that I had two specific plans that I wanted to bring to the meeting this evening, and because my time is limited, I have a fact sheet here which I don't know if protocol allows for people to come forward and grab them during the discussion, but afterwards you're welcome to. But one of my programs is called Parkway Points, and it is a community partnership with merchants in the area. I'll save the specifics for you to look at, but the bottom line is this would involve people in the Parkway District going to the local merchants who have signed up for this program called Parkway Points, and they would get points when they purchase products at those merchants and derive revenue for Parkway in the process.
Thank you. All right, our next question, whole new topic. Very emotional topic. Security in the schools. Two sides of this seem to be appearing. One is the students need to feel safe at school. And the second deals with the topic, the issue of should teachers be armed, which I think speaks to the broader topic of how do we go about protecting kids in school. And Mr. Williams, you have the first answer on this.
Thank you. Something I'm very passionate about. We need to find ways to maximize on our already existing resources to keep our children safe. That's paramount. We as responsible parents and taxpayers must find ways to allow the district to function safely without cutting any more funding from our school resource officer program. We must also be vigilant in the stance and not arming our teachers. As I could open the door for more incidences revolving around firearm misuse and accidental shootings, and more importantly, firearms ending up in the wrong hands. As a former state firearms instructor and our distinguished member, I am here to tell you the last thing we need to do is arm our teachers. Our educators are already stretched too thin in terms of what is expected of them on a day-to-day basis, and I applaud them for handling it with the utmost integrity. The teachers need to continue to maintain their role in their classrooms as being educators and not security officers. Thank you.
Yes, students do need to feel safe. Parents need to feel safe when they send their kids to school. Fact is that schools are a pretty safe place for kids to be right now. About 1% of all homicides for school-age kids occur in schools. One of the least safe places to be for kids is at home. It's not to say that schools shouldn't do a better job. When Newtown occurred, all St. Louis County superintendents, and I'm sure Dr. Marty participated in this, got together, facilitated by cooperating school districts, to discuss what we ought to do, and they came up with recommendations. I'd refer you to their recommendations, which I support. Basically, they recommended that armed security should be in the hands of trained professionals and not staff or volunteers. I'd do some other things in Parkway schools to improve that. I'd have limited access to the schools. I'd increase monitoring. I'd train staff in crisis intervention and de-escalation. I'd expand the school resource officer program. I'd investigate the feasibility of automated lockdown systems, as some schools in the St. Louis area have done.
Thank you very much.
Security in the schools is of utmost importance. I believe in what the NEA has promoted and put on their website. I believe that professional development needs to occur with all teachers and all teachers, future teachers entering the profession. It needs to be ongoing. I also believe in their commitment towards mental health and in their awareness and also the support of those who need help with mental issues and emotional disturbances. I applaud Parkway for becoming involved as a leader with Character Plus and recognized as a character education, promoting and practicing school of character and caring communities throughout the district. This helps our students know that they are both safe emotionally and also physically within our schools. So I thank Parkway.
Thank you.
Our primary responsibility, obviously, is to educate our students, but we also have the primary responsibility to create a safe environment for our students as well. An environment that's safe from outside sources, and every means that we could provide within our possibilities of ensuring that all students are safe once they're in our buildings and around our campus as well. And I know the district has taken outstanding measures to cause that to happen, and we'll continue to do that in the future. Also important is keeping our students safe within the school. Sometimes students have difficulties, anger management problems, various issues that kind of create a situation that students within the school can be harmed in some respect as well. So the emotional well-being of our students needs to be monitored closely. We need to provide a nurturing, positive climate within our schools that allow all students to feel that they can be a friend, they could be there in a caring kind of support to one another to ensure that we have safe schools all the way around, outside and in.
I want my children to be as safe when they are at school as they are when they are in my home. I would, as a board member, I would want to see our district take responsible measures to see that we do this or come as close to this as possible. I believe school security is absolutely a local issue. The board needs to evaluate all options and consider input from all stakeholders, including teachers and parents.
Thanks. Well, you can look at policy issues. You can the SRO program, partnerships with local police from higher visibility, policy with regards to making sure that schools are secure with regards to who can enter and exit them. But you also got to look at an ounce of prevention here too. You got to look at the social emotional learning aspects that the schools are undertaking. I think Parkway is really leading the charge with regards to looking at the student holistically as the whole person, and being able to address issues such as bullying and evaluating students that may have problems. I mean, you have to acknowledge the district's role with regards to the community as a whole as far as safety goes, too. Because the safety for the whole community starts with the school district.
As I said in my opening remarks, I came to the candidacy for the school board out of a desire to improve school security. But in the process of doing my investigation, I've met with many of the administrative officials at Parkway, including Fred Crawford, the head of security for the school district, who admitted that even though we're doing a very, very good job in Parkway, there's even more that could be done. But I've also come to realize that we as a school board are not a legislative body. It's a hopeless task for us to sit here and debate whether we could arm teachers or not arm teachers, because it's simply not part of our function as a school board. I'm taking the other tack in my candidacy and approaching the mental health approach. My other program, which I hope in the remaining time this evening I'll have a chance to explain, is a program that I'm calling Parkway Community, which I'll give you more details on later, but it's a program that would involve the community of students, siblings, and parents throughout the district being involved in fostering a community for our students.
Thank you.
I could echo the same remarks as everyone else had. I do not agree with arming teachers in our school. I don't feel that that's their job. We really need to leave that up to the people who take that on as their profession, and they know how to do that. I'm very proud that Dr. Marty has been meeting with fire chiefs and police chiefs and first responders within our area to collaborate with these first responders to help keep our schools as safe as they possibly can. Parkway has taken additional measures, I've seen them in my son's own school, to make this as safe and as secure as possible. I do think that we need to watch our resources. I mean, this could be an issue that we could throw all of our money at. I'm concerned that no matter what we do, if somebody wants to do harm, they will do harm, and there's nothing that we can do about that. So we have to be protective of our resources in that way. But of course, keeping our students safe is the utmost, and I want to make sure that Parkway keeps this at the forefront and educates our students as to how best to be good citizens.
Thank you. Okay, next question. New topic. Okay. A little background on this. I first moved to Missouri. We, family, moved in 1978. My first job was to write remedial packets for students to pass the BEST test. Doesn't that sound like fun? One of my last jobs before I retired was helping to write the MAP test at the state level, full circuit. So I guess I have some buy-in on this question, but luckily, I don't have to answer it, right? So, how would you work to see that Missouri goes forward with the Common Core state standards if you agree with their implementation? So I guess the point is, what do you think of Missouri Core standards? And what do you think Parkway should be doing to implement them? This is first, this goes to Mr. Eichenberg.
Well, if you tell me your opinion on the role of federal government, I can pretty much tell you where you're going to fall down on Common Core standards, because that really is a political issue. If you look at it from an educational standpoint, the Common Core standards are very, very sensible. They simply say that we should have similar expectations for students wherever they live in the United States. We've got problems now with students transferring into Parkway from other areas that haven't been prepared to the same way at the same grade level. And similarly, if Parkway students move somewhere else, they ought to expect that they could resume their education at a similar level. Implementation is the problem. It's going to cost a fair bit for some districts more than others to implement the computer assessment programs that are essential to make it work. It's also going to require some training of teachers in how to meet those assessments, but the bottom line is that it doesn't dictate what the curriculum should be. It just sets standards that are consistent throughout the United States and expects school districts to meet those.
Thank you.
The Common Core state standards, that sounds like my day every day as an educator right now. I'm working with them currently with my students in the below basic area, moving those students and trying to move them to basic as well as proficient, and allowing teachers to understand how to unpack the Common Core. what I'm finding is that there is a depth of knowledge that needs to occur within the understanding of students and teachers. Professional development, as Ken stated, does need to happen, and deductive reasoning as well as higher level thinking skills need to be the focus. The cost is if we don't participate, our students might be, as they said in the past in education, left behind. And if we also participate, the real cost is the technology to be up and running and to be able to do that. The blessing is that we do have the autonomy to develop our curriculum.
Thank you. Dr. Sortino.
The Common Core standards basically are a benchmark for our educational systems. The Missouri Common Core standards are recognized to be some of the highest and the most rigorous in the country overall, so I think we're very fortunate in that respect. These standards also give us a benchmark for our curriculum as well. Throughout the process of our professional learning communities that we started this year, basically teachers are recognizing the Common Core in relationship to their curriculum. They're also teaching to them as well as a minimal standard. But I think in Parkway we go beyond the Common Core standards, and that basically helps us to provide the most excellent education for our students. But I do believe that it is a benchmark that is very, very helpful, and it's one that we can guarantee every student that at least you have a minimal education with the Common Core.
Skeptical. I'm skeptical of the implementation of a program that says such a broad application. I'm skeptical of using our children as guinea pigs on an untested, unproven system. I'm skeptical of a system that puts a high level of emphasis on student test scores alone in evaluating our teachers. Skeptical of a one-size-fits-all approach to our education. There are many ways for a teacher to be a good teacher, and we should not pigeonhole them into one specific way. Our schools are our schools. There are Parkway schools, there are our schools, and they should be controlled locally.
My nephew moved from Dallas to New Orleans with his 3 girls, and when they got to New Orleans, and my niece put them in school, they were each at least a grade ahead of where the curriculum was for that school. And I think this is a way to address that issue. I mean, Arkansas has like the highest proficiency level in the country. Really? Arkansas does? I mean, this is what the Common Core addresses. And this was a group of, it was the governors and along with the education department that set out to address this well over 2 years ago. And, you know, once again, to echo some of the other sentiments, we have Parkways beyond the Common Core. The difficulty is going to be getting some of the other school districts up to speed with regards to technology. They need to get up to speed with regard to technology anyway. But pushing the Common Core assessment part of it, which is distinct, is
Thank you.
part of the problem.
Dabrowski.
The Common Core standards are, as Dr. Shortino said, a benchmark. They're certainly something to shoot for. But the problem with those standards is that, as with any other government-mandated test, including the MAP test, which Nancy referred to earlier, is that, and we've heard this discussed much lately, is that the result is that we end up teaching to the test. And that's something that nobody really wanted to do, but we've been, to use Tom's term, pigeonholed into doing that. And I had a long chat with my son's principal over at Santo Springs last year about the MAP test. I mean, it's not an absolute. I mean, it is something that we use to measure our progress in the state and certainly in the country. But I suggest that Parkway set its own standards. I mean, we certainly need to keep the Common Core standards as well as all other tests within our sights. But we also need to raise our sights, as I said earlier in my comments, and shoot for more than those standards.
I understand the reason for needing standardized testing, and I understand the need to be able to evaluate children and assess them at some common level. But I don't think that's the end-all, be-all to a child's education. And I echo Tom and Dr. Scoratino's comments as well, that Parkway can offer a much broader, well-rounded education. We have to look at all students. We just can't look at the students who are going to excel because they can perform on the standardized tests, because not all children can. There need to be other ways to assess their achievement. And Parkway has wonderful, well-rounded programs that will include the visual and performing arts, health and wellness, and I think that those are things, too, that we need to incorporate in a child's overall well-being with education.
Well, I do believe in I understand the concern with the implementation of Common Core standards, but it is something I do believe in. Although some citizens have suggested that the implementation of Common Core should be left to the discretion of the individual district boards, we cannot afford to overlook its educational and fiscal value. We live in a top-rated district that is nationally recognized, but we're preparing our children to be competitive in an ever-changing economic climate. Moreover, as taxpayers, we flip the bill through our state income taxes and sales taxes for poorly performing districts. With Common Core standards, we can ensure that our tax dollars are used to implement a standard that will help prevent the state from wasting billions, if not trillions of dollars on districts that habitually fail to meet the most basic standards. Remember, a large portion of their budget comes from our pockets.
All right, another topic. We're going to go general this time. What do you see as the greatest challenge / most important issue before Parkway, say, in the next 12 months?
Interesting that we just discussed the Common Core. I do believe that that is our challenge in the next 12 months instructionally. I also believe that with all of the changes to our budget, it will be vital to be transparent with the voting community, to allow them to know where the money has been spent and how the decisions have truly affected in a positive way the children and the students within our school district. It will be important to move forward with instruction, and it will be important to remember that communication is going to be of utmost importance.
Right. Dr. Sorrentino?
I think our most important challenge is to assess the impact of the budget cuts, primarily as it related to the staffing cuts that took place. We think we are in a good position in visiting schools and talking to teachers. I know they miss instructional coaches and some of the specialties that they had to help them support the student learning. At the same time, they feel very confident that it's working for them under the circumstances that we're in at this point in time. So I think if we could get a good assessment of the budget cuts, basically, and how they're impacting the district to ensure that we still have a very, very high-quality educational program, that will help us to determine in the future what other direction we have to go if we have to make some other adjustments.
I think our number one challenge is always keeping in mind that we are a public school district, and this district belongs to the public, to the community. And I think we need to ensure that our community is always well represented by our board. We are representatives of the district and the oversight of and we are representatives of our district in the oversight of the administration of this district. And I think that we, as board members, would always need to keep that in mind.
I think that the next 12 months, and maybe stretching out a little bit further, I echo some of the sentiments with regards to responding to the budget cuts and watching that, but we're going to have some real issues with regards to facilities coming up here. And communicating that and letting people know just exactly what we're going to be needing to do to keep our facilities, at the level to where they should be, and to make sure that from to every corner of the district that students that go to whatever school they go to are going to have the proper facilities that they're going to need, and one high school is as good as the next is going to be a real challenge for us.
Well, there are going to be many other answers positive here in a moment, but I'm a very practical person, and I don't know if everybody in the room is aware, but we're about a year away from having the contract of our teachers union renewed next year. So that, as far as I'm concerned, is the most pressing challenge coming up for us. As a potential member of the Board of Education, the last thing I want in my first year on the board is to face the possibility, even the remote possibility, of a teacher strike. We have all seen that in communities around the country and how devastating that is to a school district. So I suggest that in the 12 months approaching that contract renewal, that Parkway, I know they're looking at it now, but that Parkway focus its attention on getting to that process without any with as little acrimony as possible, so that we can make a smooth transition. As I met with Mark Stockwell, he addressed that issue with me, and I know they are taking steps, but I think we need to really focus on that in the months remaining.
In my opening statement, I made the comment that I've come to realize how complex and complicated running the school district is, and here we are. I think the number one challenge is going to be balance. We've just talked about facilities, budget, safety, Common Core, legislative issues, teacher contracts, maintaining, and not to mention we have new administrators within the last couple of years. All of this while we're trying to maintain our mission. It's a complex, complicated industry, and one that I would greatly appreciate being involved with, and one that I think balance is going to be our number one challenge over the next 12 months.
You know, one of the things that I could potentially see, I mean, we do have a very balanced budget right now as we speak, but you know, in the next 12 months that could be subject to change. And one of the things that I would like to see as a member of the board would be to see that our resources are continued to be allocated in an appropriate manner, so that our children do not feel it whatsoever within the classrooms, and they can continue to learn and continue to carry on the tradition of Parkway excellence. Also, the implementation of core standards is also going to come up in the next 12 months. So I would like to ensure that, you know, everybody is basically playing out of the same rule book, and that we continue to strive to do the best for our children wherever possible.
Well, the greatest challenge, but also the greatest opportunity, is for Parkway to listen to the community for guidance. We've heard several specific areas that are of concern to the district, and we need community input for those. We need to know what we need to continue to involve the community in Project Parkway objectives and goals as those get fleshed out. We've got budget priorities to set. We need to determine what the community feels is important that we ought to be doing. And we, as mentioned earlier, we've got some facilities that need to be taken care of, and we need to see where those fall on the priorities and what we're willing to do to finance that.
Thank you. All right, back to Dr. Sorrentino. Another new topic. Anybody need to stand up, walk around? Yeah. I'll just take a breath. Okay, new topic. This deals with students coming into your district, new students, two different types, specifically people want to have questions about. Children of non-resident teachers being allowed to send their children to attend Parkway. I'm assuming without tuition, as most school districts do. I don't know that for sure. I'm just making that assumption. The second one is bringing in more students from schools which are not accredited, more of them attending. Questions from your folks? Okay, Dr. Sorrentino.
Regarding having our faculty bring their children to Parkway and not living in the district, I have mixed emotions on that. Basically, I feel that if Parkway could educate every child, we should do that, and particularly our faculty and staff members' children as well. I know that's difficult. It has a lot of issues, a lot of questions, and maybe that, excuse me, that's something that we can consider in the future after careful study and involvement of our stakeholders and our community in determining is this the best thing as well. Regarding the other part of the question that dealt with
bringing in students from schools that are not accredited.
They're not accredited. Basically, I feel that every child should be in a school that's accredited, but I don't think that Parkway could take all the children from around the area that are in schools that are not accredited. I think those schools have to become accredited, and there should be every means that the state provides, that the community provides, that gives that school the opportunity to be accredited in every way they possibly can to provide for the needs of those children.
I believe that our first commitment is to the children of our community. Every community has a school district, has a school board, and they should be as equally committed to the children of their community. I believe that with regard to benefits for teachers, I think that there's always opportunity to look at the overall compensation packages of our teachers and consider, what alternate benefits we can afford to them.
I kind of evolved on this issue a little bit because the one with the regards to non-resident teachers bringing their kids to Parkway. I think it's great, and I was a full supporter of that. But we do have to look at what the impact is, and there has been a lot of looking into this issue and what it might mean. Now, obviously, and I assume you're talking about the Turner case with regards to unaccredited districts.
I was just reading a question. I don't know what it's from.
Because that's been a big question mark out there, and hopefully the Supreme Court will solve that once and for all. But I really am torn because I think it would be a great benefit to teachers. But by the same token, there are a lot of teachers that actually move to Parkway and live in Parkway because they want their kids to go here. But we really have to be we have to really watch that because that could have a huge budget impact, and we have to be very careful about that.
One of the common threads that I heard in my discussions thus far with many of the administrators and faculty is that Parkway is as good a school district as you'll find in the region. However, many of our teachers do get poached. And there's one neighboring school district that I won't mention tonight that seems to be the biggest culprit. But if we're going to keep the quality of our teachers at the top, and if we're going to try to mitigate that poaching from going on, we have to have benefits for those teachers. And if allowing children of non-resident teachers to attend our schools is one of those benefits, so be it. I do also feel, though, that budgetary considerations are still a part of the equation, and we have to make it economically feasible. So the second half of the question with non-accredited students from non-accredited schools, we do have to take a very careful look before we would allow any student, any particular student into our district. We still have to have standards, in other words. So that's something that should be a function of the administration.
Thank you. Ms. Hopper?
I apologize if I'm not very familiar with the topic about non-resident teachers bringing in their children. But to bring that in along with bringing more students into Parkway that are not accredited, I think it would be a benefit to all children as much as we can afford it without impacting our first responsibility to our own children. So I think that we really have to take a look at what the overall reasons for this are. I totally am in agreement with what Mr. Applebaum had to say as well, and that I just feel like I know that we have students that come in already from the volunteer transfer program, and those are a huge benefit to those children, and I would like to see that continue as much as Parkway can afford to allow that activity to take place.
Students of non-resident teachers, that is something that can be examined by the board in collaboration with stakeholders and could be possibly part of the teacher compensation package. Now, as far as the voluntary transfer program, there are a lot of success stories from students coming in from unaccredited districts. And although I feel that the unaccredited districts should work on getting their accreditation back, we also have to be very mindful of how the lack of students could potentially affect our budgets and our overall dollars. Also ties into how we are funded by the state. So that needs to be looked at very, very carefully and evaluated so as to we can ensure the best possible outcome for our district. Thank you.
Well, allowing children and non-resident teachers to attend Parkway is clearly an attractive benefit that allows us to attract some teachers that we'd like to have, and it works both ways. I've got some neighbors who teach in other districts, and would like to have their children follow them along to those other districts as well. So I think what needs to be done is to develop some reciprocal agreements between districts so that you take care of the teachers that come in, and we do likewise. I know that Special School District has done that with many area school districts, and it tends to work out pretty well and even out. With regard to accepting students from non-accredited districts, that case was called the Turner case. It's now called the Breitenfeld case, and at this point it's beyond the pay grade for a school board. It's been held at the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court sent it back down to the lower court. The lower court held a trial on the merits and sent it back up to the Supreme Court. You heard the final arguments this last week, so we'll be hearing in some time about the 4 to 6 month time frame how that's going to turn out, and then it's up to us to implement what the Supreme Court says.
Non-resident teachers, I think all teachers, whether they're resident or non-resident, should have the package that attracts them to the district. And one of those considerations is for new teachers coming in a beginning teacher salary. Although it is very competitive, it is still very expensive to live within the Parkway School District. And with that in mind, I was very fortunate as a child to live in the Parkway School District, so I didn't have to be a student that had to worry about accreditation. I was a student that was given an outstanding education, and I do believe if we can ever provide an outstanding education for any student, we should explore it, and we should see exactly what we can do to make a difference in their lives.
Dr. Sortino?
Thank you.
Yes, you did. Ms. Clifton is next with the first to answer the next question. And this sounds like it might be a little volatile. Again, I don't live in Parkway. Do you feel it was a wise choice to build a $500 million football stadiums instead of renovating science departments?
No.
Okay.
Well, you do get into some issues with regards to how budget's handled and the difference between capital improvements and budget expenditures. We passed a bond issue, and we asked people, and we told people that this money was going to be set aside to put in turf for the football fields. And that sounds kind of frivolous, but when you talk to the facilities guys and you find out just exactly how much more these fields can be utilized, it's actually not a bad investment. The community can engage in and it does go to engaging the community with regards to the school district as well, because all kinds of other events can be held on these fields without having to worry about whether or not it's going to be game ready. So there could be debate as to whether or not it was a really an investment, but that money was set aside for that purpose. And yeah, we need science departments too. So.
Yes, I'm a big proponent of science myself, but I've also come to realize that these days school districts are driven by sports, just like society is driven by sports in this country. And if a stadium can help us derive more revenue for the school district, then it's a wise expenditure. We will actually have a revenue stream from a stadium if we sell tickets, that is, and that is being discussed. But if that's the case, we'll certainly see an income stream from it. I haven't heard of too many science contests that derive revenue. So if it really came down to a choice, yes, I would say putting in the money into a stadium would make sense from the economic standpoint.
I agree with Mr. Applebaum and with Mr. Brodsky that I did attend one of the board meetings where this issue was discussed, and do understand the reasons why we have to have some of our sports fields in as best a condition as possible. It ends up actually being more taking more money to constantly replace and to upkeep, and so those resources really need to be maintained and used efficiently. And it also does become a revenue stream for the school as well, for the school district as well. And Parkway has improved some of the science resources that they have within the school district as well. And in the elementary schools in particular, more of the science curriculum is becoming very hands-on based. And the children are actually participating in hands-on things within their curriculum. So there are efforts to make improvements with the curriculum already.
Thank you.
Well, I love the North-Central rivalry, and I really do enjoy going to the football games. And I can understand the need for having new facilities, athletic facilities, to promote community involvement with other members within our district and with our students. On the same note, I also understand the need for strong science programs, because I would like to see the district generate more STEM students and to go on to be, engineers and to have higher educational values. Thank you.
Well, I'm a scientist. I come from Caltech. We had good science programs, but we didn't have a football team at all. But I'm going to come down the side of the investment for the football stadiums. It's a good investment. Overall, the life of the fields, it's going to save money. The thing that I've noticed hanging out around South High is that a lot of programs that wouldn't have been allowed to set foot on in the football field are now having good facilities to play their games. I'm thinking of lacrosse, ladies lacrosse. They weren't allowed to even walk across the football field because they put their footprints in it. Now they use it regularly for their games. Same for the band. The band gets to practice on the field where they're actually going to be performing. It's a great benefit to the community, and it actually saves money if you get beyond the sticker shock of the $500,000. But long term, it's proven, and Missoula School Board has data on this to show that it long term saves money. I support it.
Well, the question was about $500,000 going to the football stadiums instead of the science departments. I've seen a beautiful new wing at Parkway South and their science department. It wasn't a renovation. It was a complete and new operation, and it is impressive. However, football and science aside, I will tell you I wish the money would have been spent on the arts, but on the board, we don't get to make personal decisions. It would be by consensus, and it would have to take in consideration all the stakeholders, and I would do just that.
Thank you. Dr. Sorrentino.
There are good reasons to have the turf fields, and we all know that. I think that serves the community. It serves the programs that we have, not only for athletics, but also for the bands and other parts of our program. It also helps with maintenance costs over the years as well. But we have some state-of-the-art science facilities at South, to Central, and West. They are truly outstanding. If you haven't seen them in operation, you ought to do that, because they really serve the needs of our students. It's going to improve our STEM program for the future, and it's going to bring a lot of our students into science fields in the future because of the experiences they have here at Parkway. Parkway North was the last school who had the renovations and the most current renovations prior to all these changes, and I'm confident that in a few years we'll have new science facilities at North as well.
Thank you. I have to interrupt for a minute and tell you, I hope that you folks appreciate the caliber of your candidates. I just have to say that. You are all complimented. You're doing a great job. I've worked at quite a few forums now, and I am duly impressed. Which leads me to the next question. What unique character traits do you possess that makes you the best candidate for the school board? Mr. Applebaum.
Wow, that's a tough one. Well, I definitely bring a well-rounded background. I mentioned earlier that I was a geologist for several years. I got my MBA, and now I practice law. And I bring kind of a fresh perspective. I don't have kids in the district, just dogs. And I actually go up to the high school sometimes. But so when I started on the board, I kind of had a fresh perspective. There was definitely a learning curve involved. I've had to learn a lot from my fellow board members, and even more so from a lot of the administrators, and taking in the fact that I'm dealing with professionals that have gone to a lot of school to learn how to teach. I think that that gives me a certain level of appreciation for when we're getting counseled by someone like Mark Stockwell, Keith Marty, Lisa Meredith. Those types of people really know their stuff, and I have a strong appreciation for that.
I've always, in my adult life, I've always worn many hats, and I continue to do so these days. I, as Diane Finnestead is also, am a professional musician. I'm a singer. And at the same time, I'm a businessman. I alluded to that earlier. And I wear these two hats and some others besides, which gives me that diversity, which I think on a school board is a valuable function because I can work either side of the room, so to speak. And in addition to those personas, I also am an idea man, and I still intend in the 25 minutes remaining to get my other program out on the table, but I come up with ideas like these that are practical programs that can also be very rewarding to the Parkway School District.
I care. That's my character trait. I care about this district. I have young children. We're committed to this district. We're going to be here a long time. I like to think I'm a collaborator. I like to think that I like to help bring people together so that everybody is balanced, that we're working on the same page, that there's communication, and there's involvement by all parties, not just a particular group of lobbyists or people who have their special interests. I don't have an agenda. I care about the children of this district, and I very much want to see the resources that we have be maintained and propelled into the future so that Parkway will become an ultimate institution that other schools will look up to.
Well, for anything else, I'm a father first. And one of the traits that I bring to the table is that I also care, and that I'm totally invested in seeing, the growth, the academic and character growth of my children and your children as well. Another trait that I also bring to the table is post-secondary preparation. My work in higher education has afforded me the opportunity to deal with students that are trying to prepare themselves for post-secondary education. And I can also bring knowledge to help students that may not actually go on to be traditional college students straight out of high school. They may have to wait 2 or 5 years to come back to the table, and how to allow them to retain the knowledge that they learned within their time at Parkway so that they can actually carry on and be the most effective college students that they can and join a very competitive workforce.
I took a career survey once, and at the top was education administrator, and at the bottom was politician, which makes school board an interesting choice. You kind of have to combine both. But I think the things that I've had 90 years experience on a school board, and the things that have worked are that, first of all, I love to see kids succeed. It's a great pleasure to see kids do well. I work hard. I prepare well. In 9 years on Special School District Board, I've missed one meeting, and that's because my flight was late from the National School Board's meeting in Boston. I tend to see the opportunities out of problems. It's just the way I like to look at things. I always see the opportunity. And I think most importantly, my experience has shown me that there's a wisdom of having 7 people on a school board. It's not a dictatorship, and the wisdom of having 7 citizens come together and listen to the community to come up with the best solutions is a great political system, and I value it.
You asked our character traits. The character traits that I have, I owe to 2 entities, my family and also Parkway. Parkway raised me academically, K through 12, and I'm very appreciative of the education that I was provided. But I also come from 5 generations of educators. My sister is an educator, my brother is an educator, and I'm an educator. I'm also a musician and a singer and a lot of other things. But I come with some talents that I think will help everyone. I am tenacious, I am flexible, I have a lot of drive, I have a lot of energy, and I'm honest about the appreciation that I share with others and the accomplishments of students. Nothing else, as Ken said it best, makes you smile bigger than seeing someone get it and have that aha moment. That's what all of our kids deserve.
My personal mission as a teacher and educational leader has been to provide the very, very best for our students, to give every child the opportunity to grow and learn to their best potential. And I know that's kind of a cliche, but that's what it's all about. And everything that I have done in my career has been dedicated specifically to that, no matter what I did in terms of teaching as well as being an educational leader, principal, and what have you. That's the bottom line. And as we go forward and as I continue, hopefully as a board member, that would be my dedication to ensure that everything we do is mission-driven according to our Parkway mission, and to ensure that every child has an opportunity to get the very best education and to make sure that they actually learn. That's the most important thing. And I think we can do that. We're well on the pathway to do that.
I am strong, and I'm confident. I'm not afraid to share my opinion, and I'm not afraid to fight for it. I'm not easily swayed. That said, I'm always willing to listen to others' opinions. I want to make the best decisions, not just the decisions that are my opinion. As a representative on the school board, I represent the community, and I would like to take into account what the community needs and what the community wants, and represent that with my strength and my confidence. As I said, I'm a mother, and I want to make sure that my children have schools in the community that represents the best that we can offer.
Thank you. Well, it's time for the final wrap-up, so we're going to begin this in just a second with Ms. Fenstead. I want to thank you all for writing such good questions tonight. I have as many more questions in front of me as I asked, which really says something about you. Also, your candidates do. So, candidates, if you're ready for your 2-minute summaries, is there a microphone down that way? And this time we're going to come the other way, totally confuse them at the very end. And also one quick reminder too, well, go ahead, I'll tell you later.
Go ahead.
No, I have more to say, it's all right.
Recently, I was at a national conference for educators, and it was in Omaha, Nebraska. And this woman came up to me and she said, "You're from St. Louis, right?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And she said, "Where'd you go to school?" And I said, "What?" "We're in Omaha, Nebraska." And she said, "Yeah, high school. Where'd you go to high school?" I said, "Parkway South." She goes, "Oh, that's a good school," and gave me that approving nod that happens when you share that you're a part of Parkway or a product of Parkway. This is what I want for the future of all of our students. When they graduate from Parkway and they're anywhere in the world and someone happens to know the cliche St. Louis question, "Where did you go to high school?" when they say, "I'm a graduate of Parkway," they get the approving nod, because the approving nod means that we as a school board have accomplished our mission of making sure that not only the kids that come out of Parkway, but those who know one, know that they are capable, confident, and they know that we cultivate curious thinkers in an ever-changing world, and that Parkway is mission-driven and true to their word. With everyone's collaborative efforts and with an open ear to everyone in this community, who has the best education within our population of anywhere I've ever been in the world, but of course I'm not biased, being a Parkway graduate, I know that we can prepare our students for the future, and I look forward to that opportunity of service, if chosen, last on the list.
I want to thank the excellent moderators. You've truly done a good job in sorting through the questions, and we had a lot more we could have talked about. And I want to thank the audience for being here. Involved citizens and involved parents make for successful schools, and they make for successful students. So thank you for being involved. I want to close by summarizing what I believe in. We talked about some specific issues, but we didn't get so much to say what we thought in response to the questions. My thoughts and commitments are summed up by the acronym. I like acronyms. You can tell. LEARN, L-E-A-R-N. That stands for L is for learners. Every student should have the opportunity to become a capable, curious, and confident lifelong learner in an ever-changing world. I believe in educators. Every classroom and program should have teachers, staff, and administrators who are well-qualified, representative of our community, are appropriately compensated and motivated, and who understand that education is more than achievement on performance on a standardized test. A, I believe in access. Every child should have the opportunity for a free public education in a building that's safe, secure, and welcoming, in an environment that's free from harassment and bullying. I believe in revenue accountability. That's the R part of learn. And every dollar of taxpayer revenue collected should be directed to those purposes and only those purposes. And finally, N, no misalignment. Every budget, every plan, every curriculum and program should be aligned with the Parkway mission, vision, and commitments to the community as developed by the community in Project Parkway. Back to the acronyms, remind you I'm KE. That stands for Kids Education.
You know, one of the highlights of my job working at the university is having the luxury of working with Parkway graduates. And when I see them come to me as traditional and non-traditional students, I can tell where they've came from and how hard they work to get there. One of the things that I'm very proud of within graduates from our district is their high level of academic integrity and what they bring to the table throughout their collegiate process in pursuit of their undergraduate and graduate degrees. It is my solemn goal that if elected to the board that I will do whatever it takes to continue this tradition of excellence, and that I will do whatever I can to help prepare our students to be competitive in this particular economic climate in our job markets. Another thing is that I really, really appreciate the opportunity to speak before you tonight, and I really appreciate the hard work that the monitors have done for us this evening. And I will ensure that I will guarantee to continue Parkway's mission of ensuring character development, which is paramount as we develop future community leaders, as well as a strong sense of citizenship within the classrooms. I will also do whatever is in my power to dedicate our existing resources to ensuring that not just a handful of students, but all, and I underline all students, feel safe in the classrooms. Thank you for your support.
It has been my pleasure to be part of such an important event this evening and to be able to express to the community the reasons why I would be honored to serve on Parkway School Board. As we've seen from this evening's discussions, running a school district has many facets and challenges. And while Parkway can be proud of where it is today, I am pleased to be part of the school system that is not satisfied with status quo. How best to educate children for the future will remain a challenge as we reflect on how rapidly our world can change in short periods of time. Some of the industries, careers, technology, and services we have today did not even exist 20 years ago or even 10 years ago. But educating students on the core curriculum is only one part of our responsibility to providing a well-rounded education. Providing education on character development, safety, health and wellness, performing and visual arts are also vitally important to developing capable learners to reach their destiny for success. And for those children who either struggle or excel in school, they too should be able to find a place that sets their course on a path for their success. It is my desire to serve on the Parkway School Board to help our children grow their knowledge of themselves so that they can tap into the resources Parkway has available. And at the same time, I will work to protect and grow the resources of Parkway so it will be here for our kids for many years to come in order that they are prepared to make their own positive mark on this world. Thank you.
I, too, want to thank the League for organizing this forum this evening, and to all of you for being here to listen to us this evening. It's been very enjoyable for me to participate in this. And before I make my concluding remarks, I want to again stress that for any of you that want to come up and see, I have a few handouts here, including my campaign summary issues and also those two specific programs that I mentioned during the evening, the one which is Parkway Community and the other which is the Parkway Points program, which I would work to implement or at least bring before the board if I'm successful in my campaign. So in closing, here simply stated is my agenda, and even though I numbered these points, they're all equally important to me and I hope to Parkway. First, one is to provide a safer and more secure environment for our students. Also, to make Parkway the best schools in St. Louis for the students and faculty alike, and also to provide an involved community of students, parents, and teachers all working to take Parkway to an even higher level. Thank you very much. Please vote for me on April 2nd.
Thanks. I want to reiterate the thanks to the Legal Women Voters for doing this forum because, you know, in an election like this, it's really important that the public is informed as to their choices. And I also want to reiterate my thanks for the other candidates. I think you're right. We have a really good slate of candidates to choose from. When I started off 3 years ago on the board, like I said, I had a learning curve. I would sit in meetings and just kind of try to absorb it and try to figure out what's going on. And when I look back on that, the transition that has taken place amongst Parkway, there's just very few of the main characters that are left from that administration when I first started. One of the biggest decisions that a school board's going to make, we had to make twice actually. We had to get an interim superintendent, which was Don Senti, which helped to kind of like pull back some of those that have been poached from Parkway, from that nameless school district. And then we hired Dr. Keith Marty. And I'm very proud of that choice because he has kept us on the path that we had started off on. And in fact, righted a few wrongs and got us all kind of, as an administration, kind of moving in the same direction, which is absolutely crucial for a school district the size of Parkway and as diverse as Parkway is. That's one of our biggest strengths, but it also makes it very difficult to manage from the top. We are confronting issues. We have confronted issues that were long overdue to be confronted, and I'm very proud of that. So I'm very proud of my tenure on the school board, and I appreciate another opportunity. Thanks.
Thank you all for coming out tonight. Thank you for the opportunity again. If you would like to find out more about me, I would invite you to find my Facebook page at Clifton 4 Parkway or follow me at Clifton 4 Parkway. I am not a politician. I am simply a concerned citizen. I'm an honest person who would appreciate the opportunity to represent our community. I am a mom, I'm a citizen, and I'm a taxpayer. And in all those roles, I think it is important that we take actions to promote Parkway as an outstanding district. I believe this is best achieved by a board who represents our citizenry effectively, who efficiently manages the resources they are given, while always keeping a sharp eye on giving our students the opportunity to achieve and excel. Thank you.
I, too, want to thank everyone for being here this evening, and the League of Women Voters for holding this forum for us as well. And I want to thank all the candidates for all your comments. I learned a lot from all of you. But, you know, when I look at Parkway from the standpoint of a board member the past 3 years, it's totally impressive. I've always been impressed with Parkway, and I feel that it's a school district of exception. There's no question that it's excellent in every way. But most importantly, when I think of Parkway, I think of the total package. Parkway has the total package. We have wonderful families, a wonderful community, wonderful, absolutely wonderful children, outstanding teachers, outstanding staff, outstanding administrators, an outstanding superintendent, and an outstanding board. When you put that package together, you have excellence, and there's no question about it. We have the challenges of the future. There's no question about that as well either, because any organization that's fluid and as complex as an educational institution has challenges in the future. But there's no doubt with this community, with our faculty, our staff, our administrators, and each other, we are going to continue to help every student, each and every one, to be capable, curious, and competent, and to help our teachers to grow and develop in the future as well. That's so important. We have wonderful teachers, but there's always room for growth. They could be better. We also can continue to improve on our curriculum to make sure that we have the most viable curriculum that meets the needs of our students for the future as well. And in terms of resources, we have to allocate resources in the most efficient way and in the most prudent way as well. And I think that's part of the total package. Our goals, which I just reiterated, basically are the future of the district, future for our students, so that every student receives the very best education so that we can all continue to be proud and that we can all go out into the community and realize that our students are leaders in the future.
Thank you very much. Now I have to get in a little plug here. The League of Women Voters is nonpartisan. It's also nonprofit. We are all volunteers. We would appreciate any contribution you would like to make, either through your being part of the League or even a financial contribution. There's some brochures over there on the table. We have quite an extensive work to do in St. Louis. You might have seen our voters guide at election time. We usually run, well, I think this spring we are up to about 20 forums just in for the municipal elections. And like everything else, it all costs. So there's my plug for you. Thank you, candidates, for coming. You did an excellent job tonight. I'm grading you. Citizens, thank you for coming. And I will say, that's right, you poached two of my best teachers. Thank you. Remember to vote April 2nd. Keep democracy working. Good night. Stretch, walk around.